What is the difference between a client, a customer, and a beneficiary in a nonprofit context, specifically around grant writing? That's the question we're going to jump into today. And I'm going to just give a bit of a framework. As with many other definitional elements, there is not always a ubiquitous, consistent definition that everybody uses. But again, the important part of this video isn't to be dogmatic with this is what this means and this is what this means. It is to understand the variables at play so that you can better discern which terminology you use and when and what is being asked of you by different grantors. My name is Benjamin Dean from grantgetting.com, and I hope you enjoy this video and others like it on this channel, which are aimed at helping you get more grants. There's a free download in the description with additional information on this topic. So let's start with customers. A customer is typically a person who exchanges money with you for a product or service. They are buying something from you. They are rarely, although with some exceptions, rarely used in nonprofit models. They're more so used, this terminology is used in for-profit business models where customers are essential. But in a nonprofit context, customers may take on a different role. And it may be something that is even definitionally correct, but chosen by that nonprofit not to use this terminology. Typically, this terminology is around transactions or being more transactional. And it's an important distinction when communicating your revenue streams in, say, a grant application. So if you have people who buy things from you, who pay for services, it would be accurate to call them customers, right? Now, the difference between a customer and a beneficiary, generally speaking, in a nonprofit context, is that beneficiaries will receive the benefits of your services typically without paying for them. Whereas customers, it is a transactional sort of relationship. There's a payment and there's a receipt. They can be the same thing, but they do not have to be the same thing. Most of the time, we don't use customers in nonprofit grant writing land unless you have a very distinct business model within your nonprofit, which is absolutely possible. It's just not as common, where as a means of earned revenue for your nonprofit, you are selling something to someone, right? Somebody, let's say you've developed a unique process for identifying and predicting future behavior of somebody who may relapse into an addiction or an addictive, behavior. You've developed this process to train your team, your caseworkers to identify different things that you've noticed. It's a whole process. You've got a whole manual on it. And you know what? It's a great process and you want to train other people on it. So you're going to go out and you're going to shop this process with other agencies that do similar work, and they become your customers, right? You're selling them consulting services, or you're selling them, sort of a plug and play process that they can implement there. That's an earned revenue model, which is very important for nonprofits to consider earned revenue, of course. But in the context of grant writing, that's typically, something associated with that transaction. So that's customers. The second is clients. Clients are typically different because they are looking at being in a more longer term relationship. This is particularly common in fields like health consulting or healthcare or, pro bono legal work or, things that are happening time and time again, more in a recurring basis. A client receives this ongoing support, ongoing services, and their engagement with you is typically more personalized than somebody who's more transactional, than a customer, right? Or than a secondary beneficiary who's just sort of tangentially involved. So this is important to know that if you want to segment out the people that you serve, you have this at your disposal to say you have your clients, which are those that are repeating their interactions or participation in your services for more than 1 year. They become a client, whereas before then they are a primary beneficiary or some other terminology that you want to use. But there's a length of time associated with clients. There's potentially a personalization associated as well. Number 3 is beneficiaries. Beneficiaries are central to most nonprofit organizations. These are the people or the communities who receive the benefits of the program, usually without a direct exchange of money. Now, funders care about beneficiaries. That this is, whether it's this term or another term, but it is those that are receiving the services directly. So within beneficiaries, you can map out multiple types of beneficiaries. Those that receive the services directly, you could call them your primary beneficiaries. Okay? If those people who are receiving the services are doing so over a long period of time, they can also be called clients. If they also happen to be exchanging money, paying for these services in a lower, in some way, then they can also be customers. Okay, so you can have a customer, a beneficiary, and a client all be the same person, right? But the key is the distinctions. So if you have a primary beneficiary who's directly receiving your services, then a secondary beneficiary would be somebody that has some benefit in their life or in their experience or in their job or in what they're doing because of the intervention that you made on your primary intervention, on your primary beneficiary. Okay. So if you are looking at increasing the literacy rates of children in a large area and you're putting together these big reading groups, you're pushing this for multiple years at a time, you're getting parents involved, you're getting them reading to their kids, you're giving out free books, you're hosting reading workshops, you're doing a lot of work. The primary beneficiary will be those children that are learning to read. But a secondary beneficiary will be the parents that are seeing, generally speaking, maybe happier kids, more focused kids, children with less, acting out, perhaps. You'll have parents as a primary beneficiary. You'll also have school teachers. You'll have parents as a secondary beneficiary. You'll have the teachers as a secondary beneficiary who are maybe able to move a little bit faster in their classes. They're able to have fewer students that seem to be being left behind. Another beneficiary would be tutors, reading tutors that the school districts employ. Their services are not needed as much, or their services can be better focused on children that need that one-on-one attention, right? So all 3 of those are secondary beneficiaries of the primary, which is the children, which is the target. Okay, so you can do this for any of your programs and projects. And it is important to do that because there is no reason why your program or your project, which impacts what you're calling secondary beneficiaries in this very meaningful, positive way, can't be central to a grant application. Let's say that you find a grant. In this example that I just used, you find a grant application that is aimed at supporting teachers. Okay. So it's like resources for teachers that this grant wants to support. You could make a case, and probably a pretty compelling one, that the number one thing that teachers need is support for the children that are being left behind in their classroom. It's the number one thing that they spend most of their time on. Disproportionately, it's their biggest stress because they want to help, but the situation in schools right now are that it is not set up for teachers to give too much one-on-one time. So the result of that is kids are going to be left behind. There's not the infrastructure in place to support them. This stresses teachers out. You are coming in and you are providing intervention for those children. Those children are the direct beneficiaries in what you're calling a direct beneficiary or a primary beneficiary. But the secondary beneficiary, the teachers, that is something that you can write a grant on. Okay. Even though you're not doing anything directly for them, you could absolutely, and I've done it and other people have done it, is you map this thing out so that you understand who benefits, and that can help your grant research process as well. So I hope that made sense. A little bit of a tangent, but all these things sort of work together. So if you're able to get this language down, then it really helps to parse out all the different opportunities that you might have. There's a link in the description with some additional insights on this topic. Feel free to grab that free download. There is comments below if you have questions about clients, customers, beneficiaries, or other ways to speak about those that you serve. pop them in the comments. I'd love to hear from you and respond. That's it. So thank you so much for jumping into this video, and we will see you in the next one.